Have you ever gone after a dream most people would never even try? That was me. I'm Caroline Gardner, a single mom of 3 who thought I could never accomplish something like a triathlon until I did, and everything changed. This is a show about people who dare to go after their dreams, especially when met with life's adversities. So let's go find out why we try. All right, good morning and welcome back to the Why We Try podcast, everybody. I'm your host, Caroline. And today I have a very special guest. We're going to be flapping our wings and going way back up to New England, which I'm super excited about. Today we are headed up to Old Bethpage, New York. And we have owner of Positive Plates Nutrition, Boston, New York City Marathon runner and triathlete, and fitness professional, Staci Blanket. Welcome to the show, Staci. How are you today?
I'm great, Caroline. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Absolutely. And we always start our show with a favorite beverage. So did you bring a favorite beverage today with you?
I did, being that it's Monday morning, still coming off the weekend, trying to recover from the training of the weekend. I brought my favorite, which is coconut water.
Ooh.
This one is special because it's pineapple. So it's really just coconut water with some pureed pineapple and pureed coconut in it. So it's electrolyte and nutrient-based hydration.
And
so I will sip on that.
And that one is by who? Vita
Coco.
Vita Coco.
So
Okay.
this is like 17 ounces. Maybe I'll get through half of it this morning, and then maybe tomorrow morning I'll finish the rest.
Awesome. I'm going to come in here. I have a shake this morning. My friend Dimitri, who is a chef and also a triathlete and team member, he has a Fit by Elia company that delivers meals, healthy meals, and they also do shakes. So this morning I was running around crazy and I said, could you drop off? I'm going to be doing a show this morning. Can you drop off a shake? So he did. In this one, he put chocolate, peanut butter, and espresso because I needed some coffee. The vegan protein. So cheers to beverages in the morning.
Yes. Go. I actually have 2 beverages, Caroline.
What else did you bring?
I did bring, this is the second one that I like to drink, just in my water bottle. It's aminos. It's just, this one is called Amino Lean by RSP.
Okay.
And it's really yummy. It's just raspberry flavored, and it's just a little extra protein to sort of help my muscles get ready for the week.
So yeah, we have so many things to go over because of all the knowledge that you bring to this episode today. But I do want to stop and ask you before we go into your story. I want to stop and ask you about that, the amino, for all those of us that just don't understand what is. There's so many different companies out there. I don't use anything. So tell me, what is the benefit of that?
These aminos that I'm using, and there are so many different brands, but most of them are pretty much equal. The aminos are just broken down proteins. So they get absorbed into your body quicker than if you're eating food and trying to pull the protein aminos out. It can't hurt to have some extra broken down protein to help repair muscle tissue that you kind of carnaged maybe over the weekend.
Okay. So that's why you're having this in the morning.
Yeah, I'm having this in the morning. I already had a little bit of food in my stomach. So I'm going to have this and I just sip it just to sort of get my stores kind of replenished. I'm going to swim later. So I'm going to try.
Okay. So this is something good to have like an hour or so before a training, or maybe even more?
I use this, I usually define nutrition in 2 different circles. One would be us as a human being, and the other would be us training. So what I'm doing this morning is more for me as a human being to keep my body healthy. And it's not really related specifically to the training I'm going to do.
Okay.
So this is still recovery for me. So it's Monday morning. So I'm just recovering. I'm trying to make sure my body's okay after the weekend. And then when I go ahead to swim, I'll probably have some carbohydrate before, that 45 minutes before, to give my stores some glycogen so they can use that during the swim.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks for breaking that down for us,
Yeah, I'm still just recovering.
You had a busy weekend, which we're gonna talk about. But first, let's go. I like to go to the beginning of people's introduction into, what's your background in this field of triathlon?
Interesting. And anybody who knows me, I say all the time, I'm not an athlete. I wasn't born an athlete. I did a couple of things in high school, but I wasn't on any sports, any team sports, none of that. I really didn't think about fitness even in high school. It was more, just a little bit of activity to have fun. And then I got to college and I was upstate in SUNY Albany and, put on some weight. And the girls and I decided we were going to jump around and do some aerobics and try to, keep ourselves under control. So I loved that feeling. So when I graduated college, came home, the first thing I did was get certified as a fitness instructor because I just loved that give and take of the whole situation. So I have been teaching fitness classes since, 21.
Wow.
So, yeah.
So you've always had that kind of, affinity for the fitness world in that you enjoyed it.
It was the sharing and the camaraderie that I didn't have because I was never on a team sport. So this was sort of like a very connecting way with individuals. So my lifestyle was I worked full time at Sony Music. I was in the record industry for 15 or 16 years.
Wow.
And the record industry starts at 10 a.m. So I lived pretty close to the city. So I didn't have a long commute. So I would do fitness classes or personal training because I also became a personal trainer, certified personal trainer. And I would do those things in the morning, quickly go, at 6 a.m., go home, shower, and be in the city at 10. Worked at Sony Music, and then I was in the city. And then after that, I would teach fitness classes. So I was training or working in the morning, working all day, and then I would go and teach fitness classes. And on the weekend, I would do the same thing. So I really got pretty deep into it and got a bunch of different certifications and kept that going until I had my kids. And then, and I was still, those kids. So I had to cut that down. I couldn't do all of that. At which time I created a boot camp company. So I did small boot camps in the parks and at different locations. So that was super fun.
Wow. I think that's so amazing to me because, well, you know what I envision is, and I don't know what show it was, but I remember that there was a show where somebody had signed up for boot camp and it seemed like a great idea. And then boot camp came to their front door. And I don't know what show it was. I have to research that.
It wasn't such a good idea anymore.
And then it was like, these people on the show were like, why did I sign up for this? And then our local parks here, way before quarantine or anything like that, there were different types of boot camps. And I think that that's just such a positive way for moms, especially, or dads that are out there looking for some movement and they need it to be close to home. You got to be quick. You don't want the membership of a gym. You want to just go out and do something fun with friends. Good for you. How impressive.
And it was just that. It was sort of like, I always envision it as even triathlon, as we are playing as if we're kids again. We're adults playing.
Yeah.
And what looks like more fun than watching children play?
Yeah.
Watching adults play.
I know. It is. It is. So you did that. And where did triathlon come in? Like, how did that come into play?
Yes. Interesting. So in 2011, I had herniated some discs in my neck. So this is really not that long ago. And I was getting injections for pain management. And unfortunately, it was working great until, unfortunately, the doctor hit a blood vessel instead of the nerve sac, and I got a bleed down my neck. So I woke up and my right leg was unmovable. It was paralyzed. And my arm was in excruciating pain. Emergency surgery. They had to clean the blood off of my spinal column because wherever the blood kind of dries, you could be permanently paralyzed. So that was really traumatic. I came out of that. And again, I was teaching spin classes before that. I was really active and working full time. And I was down. So physical therapy started with just, the bands and, getting the movement into my neck, but I needed my leg to wake up. So one of my friends got me a treadmill. He said, do physical therapy, but see if you can start walking on this thing. So I did. So I started walking, and my personality is I'm going to do the best I can at everything. or at least that's my attempt. My perceived exertion has to be 100%, 10.
Mhm.
So I started walking and then I was like, oh, I can lift my foot a little and I'm jogging. And so one of my boot camp students said, have you ever tried a 5K race? And I didn't even know what 5K race was, you know? So I said, I haven't. I don't know anything about running, but that's a good goal. Let's do it. So this accident, this surgery thing happened in November. So by June was the first 5K we were going to do. So I was working so hard. I went to this race, not knowing anything or anybody. My kids came with me, put the bib on,
Hmm.
and I went. And I did really well. I didn't even know what pace meant. I didn't know what my pace number meant, but I did really well. And I placed in it in my age groups.
What? Oh my
I did.
gosh. Did you even have a watch or anything on or no?
I didn't. I did not. I was just
I always
following.
ask that because I think that's fantastic, right? Like, isn't that the best?
If I had a watch, I wouldn't have really known, where that would have fallen in with anybody else. So
Wow.
because I didn't know what people ran. So because if I went running, it'd be like, I'll run for half an hour, I'll run for 40 minutes, but I didn't know how many miles
Right.
that should.
Yeah.
So I was just following this one girl that I knew who was so fast. I was following her. And
Your training plan. I love it. That's awesome.
find somebody you want to assimilate and just keep an eye on them. So I did like a 7:07 pace on my first 5K.
That is incredible.
So
That's
got me.
incredible. Coming back from a surgery and everything, that is awesome.
No, but the thing is, you don't know how fast. I didn't know how fast other people ran.
Yeah.
So my friend Krista, who's the one who got me into this 5K, said, "Now we're going to go do a half marathon." So I went from a 5K to a half marathon. So I started running. So I started doing some races and having some, good intrinsic feedback. I felt really good. And my strength was coming back and I was teaching and everything was great. I taught boxing and one of my students owned a bike shop. And she said, there's a duathlon at the park. It's enclosed. It's super easy. I said, I don't have a bike. She said, I'll loan you a bike. You'll borrow my Cannondale. So I said, okay. So I did that and I did duathlon. I did my first duathlon in 2012. And then, of course, I was hooked because it was that whole kids on the playground thing, right?
Yeah. So you had like a group of people that you started doing some rides with and everything?
At that point, I did, but it was sort of like pulling little pieces together because don't forget, I taught a lot of classes. So there were athletes in this class that biked and some that ran, and I would just kind of train with whoever. I wasn't on a team or anything like that. Until 2012, I went to Ironman Lake Placid as a support person. And that experience was like, okay, I just put that in my brain. Like, this is what other people do. Like, this is not me. Like, I'll never do this. But how awesome is this? Because I didn't know how to swim. I barely knew how to bike. I was biking like a spin instructor, 110 cadence and just spinning. No resistance.
I love it. I love it because there's so many people right now that have bought the Peloton and it's great. I'm excited. I'm happy. There's a lot of moms in my kids' grades that are like, oh, I bike. That's how I got into it too. Like I would go to spin classes and it's so different, right, Staci? Like how could you explain it? Okay. How would you explain that difference? I love that because you were an instructor. So tell all the moms out there and dads that have these Peloton bikes and it's such a good feeling. Like they're doing something, they're being active. I'm so proud of them. And what difference did it make for you to go from indoor to getting outdoor?
It's interesting. There are kind of two different things that come into play with this. The first is the positive effect of doing spin classes is that your cardiovascular system is so strong. I mean, it's fast pumping music. It's fast legs. It's getting the lactic acid flushing out really quickly. It's getting your heart and lungs to pump really highly oxygenated blood all the way down to your calves. I mean, it's really good overall for your system. However, it's not necessarily indicative of muscle strength, which is what we need for triathlon. So in Peloton and even in spin classes, there are different formats. All spin classes and Peloton workouts are not the same. So if you could look for interval classes, which give you some power and strength,
Uh,
And again, it's this whole perceived exertion thing because, if an instructor tells you to turn on, well, are you turning on a little bit of gear and you feel you're like, oh, that's enough, or are you going to go for it? Do you want to get stronger, and then can you break through that resistance as
mm,
if you're on the road? But it's very different because when we road ride, and this is why I had so much trouble in the beginning, and I hired a coach to help me because in spin, if you're going to go up a hill, you're going to add on resistance, right? But on the road, if you're going up a hill, you're taking it off and making it lighter so you can go faster. And so it's completely opposite
yeah.
as far as technique goes. So there I was on this first duathlon, and one of my friends was like, I knew that was you all the way across the other side of the loop because you're like a hamster, like I didn't know to add on. I just thought if I pedaled faster, I would go faster.
We're going to see for the next couple years so many changes because we have so many people that have, and I'm happy. I'm not putting it down at all. I think whatever form of movement that people can add to their life, the better. So if they're on these trainers indoors and they're doing it, awesome. But now, as we know, the bikes that are being bought, there's no bikes out there. Everybody's buying up the bikes. So then they're going outside, and it's a switch to learn how to do it. It's great because, like, we go back to the kid thing that we said, that's what we did when we were kids. We figured things out.
Here's the thing, it's like you don't know what you don't know until you know it.
Mm,
So I thought I was just rocking around this duathlon course as fast as I could go because I was pedaling really fast. But had I put some resistance on the bike or knew how to have any bike handling skills, I would it would have been a whole different experience. But
mm,
great experience. I loved it. And then I said, well, okay, I'm a duathlete now. I can do
mhm.
multi-sport. I can do two things, but I'm not ready to swim. So I just wasn't ready. And I grew up near the water. I grew up, by the way, on the South Shore of Long Island in Montauk, which is the gateway to Jones Beach. And I knew how to swim, but I just, it was more jump off the diving board, swim to the pool and be like to the ladder and be like everyone else. Or jump in.
Yeah.
I never had my face in the water for a really long period of time. And that scared me a lot. So I kind of put that on hold and I tried to get really, much better at biking. And then I joined it was at the time it was like a social triathlon team called the Wildwood Warriors. And they're my best friends to this day. The owner,
Awesome.
the head is my best friend to this day. And I said, can I join this team? I don't swim. But you will, Staci. You will. So we're gonna let you join. And
That's such a typical thing for a group to say. And it doesn't matter where you are, guys, just so for beginners that are out there, it doesn't matter if you're in Miami, look, you're in Long Island, you could be in the middle out west. That's something that triathletes are going to tell you. Don't worry. Like, you don't have to be a cyclist, you don't have to be a runner, and you don't have to be a swimmer to be a triathlete. Like, it doesn't make sense when you first hear it because when you're a beginner, you're like, of course I have to, but it's so true. That's awesome. I love that they said that.
So yeah, so I was like, okay, well now I feel like I need to do this because I wanted to fit into this group. I didn't want to be like just tagging along. So I said, okay, I'm going to get to this. And life kind of, unraveled a little bit. I pulled it back together. And the next year I said in 2015, yes, I did marathons before that. But then in 2015, I said, I'm going to do it. So I hired a coach, a really amazing cyclist coach and swimmer and runner. But I told him, I want you to teach me to swim. And then you need to teach me how to be a strong cyclist. And the run, I'm okay. I can do the run on my own. So the first swim lesson was, ridiculous. I wouldn't even bubbles. It was so bad. And then I had the performance anxiety. I was embarrassed, all that stuff.
Right.
But what I did, Caroline, was I said, if I'm going to learn how to swim, I'm going to learn how to swim for a sprint. Or I'm going to learn how to swim and do a half Ironman. So I said, I don't know how to swim. I'm signing up for half Ironman. Is this enough time? I want to do Timberman in New Hampshire, which was, it was in a beautiful lake, and I'm going to do this. So I figured if I could learn how to swim enough for a sprint, I could put in the work ethic that I knew I had and stretch the distance. I just had to get over that fear. So that's what we did. So my first season, I did a half Ironman. I did just practice, and I did a half Ironman.
Oh my gosh, that's incredible. That's incredible. And so were you training only in the pool or did you go to the open water where you are? Because Where the open
Yes.
water where you are is the ocean. I would imagine, did that come into play? Like, did you try and go lake swimming too? Because for me,
Yes.
lake swimming is like a whole nother ball game.
Things. So when this coach was on a triathlon team, so I joined a team. So now I have a team. And we're really fortunate. Yeah, we have the North Shore and the South Shore beaches, but we also have this really big lake called Wildwood Lake, which is the name of this first. That's where
Oh,
the name
that's
of
right.
this team came from. Because it was just individuals going to the lake to swim and they met each other and said, why don't we train together?
Cool.
So just organic, you know.
Yeah.
So we have this lake, which is about 40 minutes from my house, and it warms up, you know, in New York, we need warmth. So if we're going to race in June, you know, the end of May, we can get in the lake quicker than we can get in the ocean comfortably. So we have here. So
Good. And did you notice that? Did you notice that the lake? I'm asking because once I get into a lake swim, it's just everything sinks
yes.
as opposed to an ocean swim. So would you put the wetsuit on to help you with those moments of fear? Or would you kind of say, okay, let's take it off when it was cold, you know, when it was warm enough, and so that you could do both?
I had the wetsuit.
Yeah.
I swim, and I had a swim, you know, band with a little floaty booty
Yep.
behind me,
Yeah.
so people could see me, and I felt secure.
Yeah.
And the first season was really tough for me.
Yeah.
You know, lining up for that first race, you know, sprint or the half Ironman it was a test of my, you know, my desire to succeed. I mean, I didn't want to turn around and say no. You know, Timberman in New Hampshire, it was lake. We had wetsuits on, but you know, still there were people around me, and you know, I got hit. I got hit a
Yep.
lot. I didn't know anything about such strategy or where to place myself. I just, you know, so I maybe got like, you know, 25 yards out and I was already swallowing water because I was getting hit. I remember turning around and saying, it's okay to say today's not my day. And then I saw everybody on the beach, you know, including my kid. And I was like, no, get yourself together, just keep trying. And there are boats you can get out if it's really bad. And I got into the rhythm and I did it, you know.
I love that you talked yourself through it. You talked
Yeah.
yourself through it, Staci. I love that. It's so key, isn't it?
Yeah, I had to because you know you can talk yourself into it just as easily, right? Into the fact like I'm panicking, the panicking is getting worse. I'm panicking, I'm not safe. I should get out. This is just for fun, you know. You can definitely do that and unravel. But yeah, I didn't want to quit. So that was a great experience. My first half Ironman. So I did that, and then I said, okay, well, I just want to get better at this distance, you know, because I'll never do a full Ironman. That's for those other people that I saw up at Lake Placid, which I have to make comment, what amazed me because at the run on the first Ironman that I ever saw, it was like The Walking Dead. Like people were zombies, people were holding their stomachs and limping. And I was like, why are these people choosing to put themselves in these positions? Didn't understand what it meant, you know, to complete something
Right.
so huge like that, or even attempt it, you know. And it was, you know, young people, older people, people that looked from the outside healthy and fit, people that didn't. And they were all, you know, homogeneously on the same goal. So that was one of those moments that really clicked to me that said, just because you don't consider yourself an athlete doesn't mean that one day you won't attempt this too.
Yeah.
So that kind of stuck in the back of my mind, you know. So yeah, so my journey continued. I did a bunch of half Ironman. I had a bike crash in the second season, 2015, and I have a big scar all the way down my elbow,
Wow.
down really hard. Somebody unfortunately clipped my wheel when we were riding together in a group, and I shattered my elbow. So that was kind of tough. I was going back to Timberman that next year to do better because I love the idea of going back to the same race.
Yeah, there's something about that, isn't it? To go back to the race where you, especially one where you started, you know, that's something.
They just continued it after the second year, so I never got to go back to
Oh
Timberman.
no. Oh no.
But interestingly enough, so I had I was registered for two half Ironman that year. One was Timberman, which I couldn't make because it was too early and I had the bike accident. But the second one was Atlantic City, which was late season. It was like September. And I had this bike crash in May, which was right before my birthday.
Wow.
And so I really only had a couple of months, but I healed really well. And Atlantic City was a flat course. And I was like, if I can just pad my arm and pad my arrow pads enough that I was comfortable, I'm doing it. It was flat. I figured I could, I could do that instead
But
of
if I
having to
wrap myself up, I'll be like
I
the
just
little girl who does her bike or whatever, and she puts like the cushion, from the toilet paper, and she
right.
puts it all around. If I cushion myself up, Stacey's like, I'm gonna get this.
That's right. That's right. I did have permission. I did it with permission. I did use
Yeah.
my head on this,
Uh-huh.
and I did have permission, and I did Atlantic City. But however, I was so behind the ball on my own body. Like I was weak. I had recovered. I hadn't been able to eat well. I, lost muscle. I was tired. I was, you know, all over. It just was not a good situation. But my brain said, go try this, I did. I went to Atlantic City, and interesting on the swim, it was a bad year for the swim. There was some kind of weird turbulence in the water. It was crazy.
Mm.
But to get out of the swim, you had to climb up this ladder. And I had this, because it was like, I don't know how to describe the swim. It was like a reservoir, I guess.
Okay. Mm.
Big contained body of water. And you had to climb, you jumped in and you tread water till you started. And then to get out of the swim, you had to climb up this little ladder. And there are people there to help you. And they're pulling on my arm, like, oh my God. It was so terrible.
Then your brain was like, all right, maybe we should have thought this through.
Yes. Who knew, right? So I should have thought it through anyway, because I got on the bike and I was aggressive on the bike and it was very hot. And I was, I overdid it because I was like, I'm back, It was very, very, very dry and windy, but flat. So I got off the bike, had a great bike, really great bike, time-wise, got off the bike, got into transition and started to run. And that was the beginning of the end.
Oh, no.
It was like boardwalk. First we had to run through, it was called Batter Field. It was like an old landing strip, and it was like Disneyland. You had to run through, on this black top surface through barricades, and it was horrible.
Were there a lot of people there that day?
Yeah, it was a crowded race. And then you had to go on the boardwalk where there was no shade. It was just horrible.
That's what I've heard about that particular one, is that it's, we as triathletes, it's not like, we're not looking for like a perfect race venue. It's hard to get everything that we want. There's going to be challenges, but to have that boardwalk, it sounds like it's fun and great and everything, but then the reality is, it's no shade. And then did they move people like I'm not saying
it was cleared.
Oh, it was cleared. Okay.
It was a crowded race and it was so hot. And again, unseasoned. I only had one season in me.
Right.
I didn't focus on nutrition, which we'll talk about. What I learned from this. And this was the key turning point for me. The direction that my profession took was that I was the girl throwing up in the garbage pails, being dehydrated on the boardwalk, just throwing up. And once you start throwing up and you knock all your ketones off, you can't recover. I had the worst cramps in my stomach and my legs and
these are the things, Staci, that like, I love that you're bringing this to the table, because these are the things that our body's telling us. Like, our body is really good at letting us know when things are good and things are no good. It's interesting that, and it's good that you're sharing this, that this happens to even those that are at this point, you were pretty into triathlon, you had a couple years on your belt, and you had knowledge, like you had years of knowledge about fitness. So now that we know your background, tell us a little bit about how your why of overall, because this is not just, you started in Sony Records, which I think is awesome. It totally transformed into the next phase of your life. So you come off this race, and what happened next for you?
Well, after Atlantic City, I realized that swimming, biking, and running training is not enough. I was not prepared, thinking that, I could teach 3 fitness classes in a row, but there was a break in between and I wasn't in the elements, and I had been so conditioned to do this. Swimming, biking, running, especially depleted. And of course, coaches say, make sure you're hydrated, but, is this bottle going to be the same hydration for a 6 foot, 200 pound man as it is for us? I mean, it's not going to be. So when somebody says, oh, a bottle an hour, we don't know if that's enough. We all have different sweat rates and we all have different metabolic rates. And so I realized that day that I need to know what my body needs. And if I can figure out what my body needs, maybe I can then help other people.
I have goosebumps right now from what you just said. Like I have to stop you and pause you because it's so true. We think in everything that goes on in social media, and I'm bringing that into the table because it's our new People magazine as we're stepping out of the grocery store. This is social media. That's what it is. And we're not all made the same. It's like we
Exactly.
are not. We're not all alike. So when new people come to me or ask me questions, I'm sure you got this as moms. I mean, there's so many people right now that are having babies and I'm so excited for them, but they'll ask me questions and I'm like, wait, just because I have three doesn't mean your situation is going to go this way. So I just love that you said that. We
Because
so have
Caroline, it's not any different than swimming, biking, and running because your cadence on your run is comfortable for your body. It may not work for my body,
yeah.
right? Or they say, oh, keep your cadence between 88 and 92. Like, but 86 may feel really good for you and 94 may feel good for me. And if I try to do 86, I may not be successful. So nutrition is the exact same thing. And, you can kind of, most people are sort of throwing the spaghetti up the wall and seeing what sticks and then going, wait, what did I do again? Right. So that's when I realized I wanted to learn not just theoretically what we need, but I wanted the science of it. I wanted to learn how to evaluate each person and starting with myself and finding out what my needs are. How much do I sweat every hour? How much do I burn every hour? How much can my body tolerate replacing before it takes away from performance? All those really specific things that once we get that specified, then you just multiply it by the hour that you're doing your training. And it takes that total stress away. Like you're on the bike going, am I drinking enough? Should I finish this bottle? Should I, it takes that stress away and you focus on performance. So I found that to be a huge point for myself and for people that I coach nutritionally.
So what did you do? Like, what did you start on? You started taking nutrition courses and the rest.
Yeah,
Wow.
I did. The same thing. It kind of speaks to my why as to why I want to try because my perceived exertion. I told you I want to do everything 10 out of 10. That's my goal. And wherever I fall, but I know I'm trying my best. I mean, that's in me, and it's in all of us because it feels really good to try 10 out of 10 on what effort you have that day. So, like, if we're biking today and we're not hitting the watts, that's okay if you tried to. The same effort, maybe your body was just tired today, or you were depleted, or you didn't have enough sleep. So, we try really hard to be our best at everything, but in life, it takes a long time to necessarily find if you succeeded at something. It takes years depending on what it is. If you want to be a better, person in some aspect of your life. But when I found racing and triathlon, those small measurable successes keep the bigger ones okay. So if you say you want to do an Olympic triathlon, you only have done a sprint and you achieve that Olympic distance and you finish it and you're proud of your performance, that little, why did I try? Because now I know that if I try, there's a good chance and I'll succeed. Maybe it's not the fastest, but I did it. So I found triathlon helped me find those little confidence boosts along the path of life.
Yeah. Excellent. Excellent. And one thing that comes to my head as you're talking about knowing your body, I mean, let's face it, in my situation and all of us, right? Like the clock isn't stopping. So like we are moving forward. And as another year goes by, one of my favorite parts now of going to my yearly exam, like for the doctor, is that I feel with a lot of triathletes and athletes in general, when we go to the doctor, it's almost like we have knowledge about what's going on with our body. And it offers so much to the healthcare professional that's talking to us. And sometimes I think I shock them because they're like, your heart rate. Whoa, like, wow, you're,
Yeah, I have a low resting heart rate. I know that. And I know why.
yeah. And I know why. And it's felt good because sometimes in life we don't have a lot of control over many other things. But if we can put in good, healthy control in the sense of where it's not overly stressful, and like you're saying, like we give ourselves understanding checks and balances with ourselves, it doesn't become, it becomes a healthy balance, right?
And look, that's the whole thing with nutrition. I mean, you can't avoid it. We have to eat every day, whether, some, we all have different issues with food related to it. And to try to get ourselves to having the healthiest relationship with food and what it means to us and what its purpose is. And can we utilize food for fun and enjoyment? Yeah. But we also need to utilize it to make our bodies healthy and as strong
Mm,
as we can, that our minds will allow, you know?
yeah.
So I try to take the pressure off myself and, you know, let nutrition fit into life in the general sense, not the opposite way around, which is really hard if you're really dialed into things when you're that kind of person, because you always have that training nutrition to really dial in on. And that's just small pieces. And then you
Right.
have the rest of your day. So I really did do what you were saying is that I went and got more certifications in very specified courses that I wanted and certifications that I wanted. So I would be able to do the science and the numbers and then feel confident that I'm not just, throwing it into the wind and seeing what happens and trying to remember, because each day were different. So if I take a run that I did and I see that I burned, 600 calories, and I know my body can absorb only up to two-thirds, only up to 400. And that's the top before your body just is spending so much energy digesting, it's taking away from the energy you want to do the bike, the run or the bike or the swim. So I wanted to find out where that line was. Like, where can our body fuel as lean as possible
Mm,
and be as, get just that right amount in that sweet spot.
yeah.
So you test for that. You need to know the numbers. So that's what I did. I said, I want to know, I know the theory because I was certified in nutrition since I was 21, going through all those certifications to teach fitness classes. We needed all those
Okay.
things.
So you already had that knowledge, but now you wanted specifics.
I wanted specific so that I knew what should be in your bottle versus my bottle.
Mm,
And so once I found that out, I sort of got a test group together. And I said, will you guys, people in my community, I said, will you guys let me just test out what I'm doing? Let me test this out on you. Who would say no, right? So I wrote plans for them, nutrition plans for them, gave them recipes, and did all that stuff. And I learned from them. They're part of my research. And
mm,
once I sort of got that back and I just, kind of digested all the information, I formed my business. And that's when
wow.
I started with it.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. It's so exciting. Like I can feel the energy of obviously there's many of us on our team and teams in the area, Miami. And once we get some knowledge on something, we all want to share it with one another. It's really a
Yes.
big part of the triathlon community. That's what I have found. So I can just see everybody in your group being like, "Yes, Stacy, help us."
Yeah.
And
So what I did, Caroline, was I also did, and don't forget, I was still teaching all these fitness classes a week and having a
yeah,
personal trainer. So I wasn't really looking at this as my income at this point. So it gave me the
no,
flexibility to learn and to practice.
right.
So one of my very dear friends owns a chiropractic business, wellness business. So I would go there and I would do nutrition seminars, and just share it with our community. So the triathletes and the runners and his patients, their patients would come and I would have topics and I would have outlines and I would handouts and samples from companies I became ambassadors for so I could share products.
Mm,
And I did all that and I learned how to present and I learned how to explain it in a way that everybody could hopefully understand, because
mm,
that's a big part of it. How do you share your information?
yeah,
Right?
yeah.
And then I went to Athleta and I did, free talks there. And so I practiced it before I felt confident to actually have somebody trust me. And to this day, every single client or every single call, I learned something. If there's something I don't know, I can't wait to research it and figure it
Right,
out.
right.
So I love it because I'm just learning so much more every day and helping people.
Yeah, I think it's, to me, it's so remarkable how something that started on a path for knowledge for yourself and how that continues to drive your purpose in helping others is like I mean, it's amazing. It really is. Stacy, I want to acknowledge you for your ability to like go after that. I think sometimes it can be skipped over and it takes a lot of courage to go after it. I just want to acknowledge you for that because I think it's
Thank
important.
you.
I really think it's
What I
important.
learned about the whole process, though, Caroline, it was like I now had the information, or I was learning the information, but how do you make this into a business? How do you form a business plan?
Yeah, that's a whole nother.
That's a whole nother beast, right? So
Yeah, it's a risk. I mean, it's a
it's a
risk
risk. It's a
because,
risk.
and it's a risk that you take when you get on the bike. You know, it's a risk that you take when you go in that water, right? And then after when you go on the run and you're like, okay, we're running now. They're all risks that we take.
All risks. But don't you find that if you ask someone who you trust in that particular topic, I'm going to ask people, ask for help, ask for advice. I went to the local college, they had this new business development center, no cost. It was retired professionals in marketing and tax law and all these things. And I went, I made appointments and I sat down and they taught me how to make a business plan, how to register my company, how to make sure I didn't need to do taxing on my services and all these things. So I
And then the
learned,
doors opened up.
yes,
Yeah, the doors open up when you ask. Yeah. Oh, it's
you know,
so key.
the best part is like same, right? You're doing the same thing. It's like you have an idea. It takes a lot of energy to put
Yeah.
the wheels in.
Yeah.
Once you start getting that feedback,
Yeah.
it's the same racing. It's like I'm doing this. I'm actually doing this.
I think what's so amazing is when people are revealing themselves to you that they are sharing this common request for information, like you were going down a path for yourself and then all of a sudden you have people coming into focusing, oh, thank goodness you're doing this because I've been asking myself these questions too. And I know that there's a bunch of things at our fingertips now for nutrition, but honestly, how do we trust just an app or just and I'm not trying to
Yes.
put them down. I think that's
Oh,
great. Again,
it's
anything,
a resource. It's a
it's a resource,
resource.
but when you
Yeah.
can find a person that you connect with in an area that, like you were talking about a coach, you finally had found this coach who just you connected with and he was able to help you with that bike and help you.
Got me started. He got me
you know
started.
it makes such a
Um,
difference. So you're doing that, you're making that difference. Now, were you, I know in the beginning, before we jumped on here, we did talk about basically moving over from vegetarian or vegan. I have a daughter who has made the change quite a while ago, and it has been a learning experience for me. I have to admit, as the way I cook and prep, and I get anxiety, I get overwhelmed because when you're used to cooking a certain way, or you're used to food prepping a certain way, or grocery shop, or what have you. So when did this change happen? Have you always been vegan, or talk to us a little bit about
let me
that?
just ask you a question though. How old is your daughter when she made the decision?
Well, actually quite a while ago. I would say that she was 11 or 12 when she said no more pork, which is a really big deal here in South Florida and a Cuban
It's like it's
family. I'm not Cuban, but
witchcraft.
yeah, it was definitely a topic that came
Yeah.
up a lot. And she made that decision because of her love for the movie Babe and being on a
Uh-huh.
long road trip. And on the road trip, there was a truck in the
Yes.
fields
Yes.
driving
It's
by,
so
and she was
funny.
like, never again.
Yeah, I can remember. I was just talking to a friend about this. Oh my goodness. I think I was on a run. I was talking to my friends about this, and I was like, when I was young, my mom used to get a meat order. That's what she'd call it. She'd say, the meat order's coming today. And it would be like all these white, paper packages of meat, steak and roast beef and chow meat. And she'd put it in the freezer downstairs. And I remember thinking as a young child, this looks like a puzzle. This was an animal, and now it's a puzzle. And there are pieces and we're going to eat them. I just remember thinking that. And anyway, fast forward when I was pregnant with my daughter. So she's 26. So this is 27 years ago. I had a really, really bad pregnancy where I was really nauseous and horrible. And I couldn't stand looking at raw chicken or raw meat or any of those things.
Mm.
I basically lived on, rolls with walnuts. And I remember that's what there were these little protein rolls you could buy that had walnuts and cranberries in them. And I basically lived on that. And then, so after I had her, I really just didn't want to eat meat. I just was turned off by it. But I
Wow.
still ate dairy and fish and those
Hmm.
things. And then 5 years later, I had my son, and the same thing happened with fish. It wasn't that, it was that I was worried about, the animals and that my little bit of eating was going to make that change. I didn't have those thoughts. It was just more that it repulsed me to put another living thing inside my body. It was
Mm.
just a repulsion that I had. So I didn't eat fish anymore. So I was still eating eggs and dairy, yogurt every day, things like that. Until like 8 or 9 years ago, I was always having stomach issues, like even since I was very little. And I always thought, oh, because I was anxious or I was worried about these girls weren't being nice to me on the bus. I remember specifically incidences related to sort of stress that my stomach, the day before a test or the first day of school, those type of things. And I said, maybe it's physical. I don't know. Let me give up dairy and see what happens. And Caroline, it was like in a week, I had no stomach pain, no feelings of like bloat or discomfort. I felt so much better. And I was like, oh my God, maybe I have this, intolerance. I'm not saying an allergy, but maybe my body doesn't love dairy. Or maybe it's because I gave up all the other animal products. My body doesn't know how to digest,
Right.
doesn't have the enzymes anymore to digest milk.
Right.
So that's how I turned vegan. And the fact that I love fruit and vegetables. I mean, literally I crave them. I love them. It's almost like the variety of fruits and vegetables, the way I see things is the same as somebody who eats all different, like maybe a hamburger or steak and a sweet potato and broccoli. How they see that array, I see that array of fruits and vegetables.
I like
So
it.
it's just, that's how I see it. But it's been, half of my life
Right.
pretty much.
Yeah.
I don't know anything else at this point.
Yes.
So I crossed over, and it wasn't like it was really kind of chic back then. It was sort of like an issue. I'd go out to dinner, I was married at the time, and be out to dinner, and they'd be like, here's take one of these pork egg rolls. And I'd be like, no.
Well, as you're saying this, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, there's vegan cheese, there's vegan yogurt, there's vegan
Yes.
absolutely everything now.
But
So,
here's the crazy thing, Caroline. That's why I don't really consider myself, if I talk about how I feel my body, I don't really think of myself as being vegan. I think of myself as plant based because
mm,
I don't want something that looks and tastes like a chicken nugget made of soy or something else. I
right.
don't want that taste. I
Yeah.
don't, I don't,
You don't need the taste because
I
you're,
don't want, I don't, it
yeah, you
reminds
don't
me of
want to
what
need
it
it.
was.
And it's funny because in the beginning of her, my daughter's transferring over to being, well, she does right now, she will have fish and some dairy products, but I can see now we're veering off of it. But anyway, she and I would talk about, okay, like, again, I would go back to like, what am I going to make you? It just turned into
Yes.
that. But
But I have
now,
to,
yeah. And now well, there's all these products, out there. And I started getting to a point where I would try this too. And then I'd be like, but why do I need a burger to taste like a burger if it's
yeah.
not a
So
burger?
here's the thing about that. First of all, like, I'm so grateful that she has you as her mom for
Oh,
her, because honestly, there are so many parents, and especially, years ago, not necessarily today, that would be like, what do you mean you're not eating this chicken? And you try to force, and that's how you develop an eating disorder in a
right.
child. And you force them. I mean, look, as babies or toddlers, we can be told what to eat, but
Hmm.
like you were talking about earlier, you made this statement about how there's so few things that we can control.
Oh,
Well, we control what we put in our mouths.
yeah.
Once we can handle our own fork, it's on us.
Yeah.
We control what we say, and how we treat people, but to keep yourself healthy, that has to be on you eventually. So the fact that you're not putting her in a box and having her be traditional in her eating, if she's telling you and expressing to you that it doesn't feel right for her, that's amazing parenting, because
Oh, thanks.
there are a lot of families that don't do that. Like
And it's
I've had,
unfortunate. It's
yeah,
unfortunate because you're right. Well, what ends up happening is that, in a teenage life, and I'm sure if my daughters actually listen to all my podcasts, they always tell
yes,
me, "Don't bring us up, mom. We don't want to be, don't bring us up." But the reality is, and the reason I want to go over this is because for the parents that listen, you know, she going down this path has opened my eyes as to the options I have. And I think back to when I would do that for my mom and I brought a whole bunch of different things to the table when I started
Yeah.
doing triathlon and learning more about my health and eating and cooking a certain way. So I know that when our kids in the beginning, it seems sometimes like, and I'm sure having your kids the age they are, you can attest to this. At first, when they come to us with these different way of thinking,
Ideas. Yeah.
yeah, it's like, oh, no, I know how to do this. I already went down this road. But really, they are knowledgeable and they're so much more in tune with big picture things than I realized. And so to hear to hear her talk to me and say, well, let's try this, it's made life so much easier.
Yes.
and
Well,
and it's nice. I've learned a lot.
it brings up two things in my mind. One is that, especially at her age, she's trying to figure out what her body needs, what she wants to feed it, and how she wants to feel in her skin. So for you to try to take that control back from her is just sabotaging her growth.
Yeah.
First of all, but second of all, it is really scary when somebody, has to now all of a sudden switch how you're cooking and prepping. And so, you know, the supermarkets make it really easy to say, oh, it's meatless chicken. Here, this is meatless chicken. You can eat this. You'll be happy eating this. But then you have to turn it over and say, is this really food? Let me see what I'm actually giving my daughter, myself. I'm going to
Yeah.
share
What's
with her.
in there? What is
And
in
then,
that?
right. And all those preservatives and all those chemicals and all the salt typically that are in those really processed foods are worse than any,
Right.
that,
The other side. Yeah.
yes,
Yeah. Yeah.
if you look at it at the health way. So the point for your listeners is that if you turn over a package of meatless, hot dogs, whatever, I mean, they sell these, right? If you can't pronounce those words, and if you can't then go into your supermarket and say, where can I find, blah, 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 and it's not sold in the supermarket, it's a chemical and it's made in a factory and put the product back.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
So this is why and not to interrupt you, but this is why I want to get that amino information from you, because I have been approached by so many different companies before I started the podcast, as a triathlete, and they want you to try this, they want you to have this. And it's very important to me to read the back of a label and say, okay, what is this that's in here? So I look
yes,
forward to you helping us and the
I would
listeners
love to do that.
research,
Yes.
because you know what, as consumers, guys, we are the ones who get to say, I'm going to buy this or I'm not. We hold that power.
Look, with the way the world is now, if I look at I take this box and I see an ingredient that I'm not familiar with, I'm just Googling it, just like you can. In 2 seconds, it's going to tell me what it is. So it's not like you have to really go to somebody about a specific ingredient, but then you have to kind of know what is a good limit.
Right.
So if there's, a little bit of process to keep it fresh, I mean, you're going to need that. So it's good to have somebody that you can go to. And I mean, obviously, always come to me. I will help you. But we have to, just as if we were buying, a meat product, you're going to look and read the ingredients. Just because something says plant based doesn't mean it's healthy.
Yeah.
Healthy and plant based are not the same. Nor does it mean if you're plant based or vegan or you eat fish, it doesn't mean that you're going to be lean and a better athlete
No.
or weak and a weak athlete.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that it's not that at all. It's
Yeah.
finding what best will serve your needs within the way you choose to feel your body.
Yeah. Because like you said before, we're all made differently and we all need different things. Our bodies each require something different. So I love it. There's so much information from you. And guys, I'm going to put Staci's information in the notes of the show so you can contact her. And she has clients all over. And you can contact her and get in touch with her for any specific needs that you have with your nutrition, whether you're just starting or whether you're knee deep into triathlon or, you're looking for a transition and a change. We're going to put your information there, Staci. Is there anything that you, outside of all this wonderful information you've brought to us, for anyone who's a beginner in a triathlete and thinking back to when you were a beginner? I mean, you gave us some great information as far as going to your local bike shop and talking to people, being very connected with people is always important. But is there any advice that you would give anyone new to this arena or coming back in?
I mean, in terms of nutrition and how to fuel your body for this.
Yeah, it could be. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would say the most important thing, and I hear this also every day, is I'm putting things into my app and I'm tracking my calories and my macros. And, people try so hard to do it right, but you have to understand that calories are not all the same. I mean, proteins and carbs both have four calories per gram. When do you have the protein and when do you have the carbohydrate is what makes the difference. It circles back to the beginning of our conversation is when do I have my aminos in my water, right? I'm not having them for energy. I'm having them after for repair or to restore from a hard workout. So I think it's really important that people understand that carbohydrates, simple ones, simple cereals, simple breads, things that you wouldn't normally eat because everybody wants whole grain, but that takes a lot more energy to digest. And we are going to go bike and
So
run.
what's a simple bread? What's a simple bread? Because I love bread. What's simple?
Like a potato bread.
A potato bread.
A potato bread would be the best option, really, like the yellow potato bread. With some no sugar added fruit jam, some natural carbohydrate, a tiny bit of protein, maybe a teaspoon of chia seed or a tablespoon of nut butter. Get the combination. So if you have that, you're having the protein in the little bit of nut butter, you're having the bigger portion of carbohydrate, which is what you need to exercise to train in the bread and in the sugar naturally from the fruit. So, or a banana has all of those things. Then you can add a little bit of peanut butter, almond butter for a drop of protein. So the calories, the most important thing to remember is that calories throughout the day are going to serve different purposes. So before you're training, if you're new into triathlon, you don't want to have eggs in the morning because you think that, oh, I'm going to get stronger. No, you can have carbohydrates to fuel your workout, have your eggs after for protein synthesis. So you can just figure out what you need when you need it, and then just kind of insert your pieces. And don't get too hung up on calories because if you fuel correctly and you get your metabolism working really well, you're going to torch through calories before you store them, as long as you're not putting them at the wrong time of your day.
Very, very true, Staci. Thank you so much for that valuable information. And in Florida here, the Miami Tri Club, we had about, I think he had 50 plus new athletes join his team, Andy Clark, Coach Andy Clark. And so there were a lot of newbies that came out, and some had information previously, but there were many that didn't. And I remember there was this one big bike ride that we were doing one morning, and some of them were like, reflecting at a break what they had for breakfast. And we drove by somebody who was making coffee. Doesn't that hurt? Like you're on the bike ride and you smell the coffee and you're like, that's not nice. We're coming for you coffee. But at the break, I said, oh yeah, I mean, I had my breakfast. And they're like, what did you have? And I'm like, oh yeah, I had a bagel and I put my stuff on there. I got up an extra hour so that I knew like I was going to have it. And they're like, really? And that's when it dawned on me, no wonder by that halfway point, they were starting to crumble, And I said, guys, I've been there in the beginning. And I said, you guys, there's some of them that were a lot younger than me. And I'm like, I know we think we can burn ourselves. And like, that's why we're coming out here to just burn. But you don't want that. Number one, you're on a bike. Like you won't win. The road, the pavement will win, but you won't win. And I've been guilty of it in the beginning. I didn't have a good relationship with food. Well, in the beginning of before triathlon, I realized that it became more of, for whatever reason, the lack of knowledge, really, it was like, okay, the more that I exercise and the less that I eat, wow, I'm looking great.
Yes.
But I wasn't strong.
Exactly.
I didn't have the energy and I didn't have the strength.
But you know what? Everybody has to sort of, unfortunately, learn that hard lesson because I work with a lot of like high school kids, high school athletes, and their coaches are just like, run, cross country, just run, and these kids believe that they are sort of like, I say the same thing to each of them. You're not a supreme species. You are like everybody else. And as much as you think you can get by with less, you can't. Eventually, just like a car, eventually the brakes are going to go on the car if you don't service it and such. So once you get that mentality, like, I'm not different than everybody else, I'm the same as everybody else. Maybe I'll take in a little bit less. Maybe I can fuel a little bit leaner than somebody who's like all
Yeah,
into,
or
you know,
switch
bulking
it,
up on
like you were saying, like to rearrange your, because look at potato bread, guys. I mean, that is yummy.
meat.
And you
It
get
is
to
so
have
good.
it. You're just
You
putting
get to
it
have
at a
it.
different part of your day. And then, man, what a difference you see and feel. And great. So
Because
I
you know
love
what?
it.
If you go for that whole grain bread that you may have on your rest day for breakfast, right? Because you don't, or you're not working out to the end of the day. If you go for that whole grain bread, which takes so much more energy to digest, I mean, your body needs a lot more water to just break that down. And all this work
Mm.
is going to that, where you could be biking like a little bit better. So you have the simple carbohydrate that's broken down for you already and instant, boom, instant fuel.
Ugh, you have so much knowledge. I'm feeling another episode coming on as we go
I
forward.
love that.
Definitely
love
want to have you back with Leah too, because Leah Jansen that I've had on before is how we were introduced, and I'm grateful for that. And Noah as well. It's
Well,
been
thank you.
an incredible ride with all of you from up in New York. It's just I'm grateful, and I can't wait to get up there to actually be in your neck of the woods and meet you guys. We have a rapid fire round that you said yes to, so we're going to
I
end
did
off
say yes.
with our
Okay,
rapid fire
I'm gonna
round.
turn my brain on.
So I'm going to grab
I
a
sprint.
quick sip of our beverage.
Let's do it. Cheers.
And my coach had some help in these questions, so I apologize beforehand. But hey, it's all in good fun.
I did say yes. I'm down. I'm down.
All right, number one, a long bike ride, a long training ride. So this is not, you're not in your Ironman, you are in a training ride. Are you going for bib or tri shorts?
I'm going to try shorts.
Tri shorts. Wow. Okay.
Pee. What if I have to pee?
I know, that's true. That's a good point. All right, number two, swimming, bilateral breathing or only on the left or only on the right?
Only on the left.
Only on the left.
Yes.
Okay, all right, I like that. All right, and number three, you're in the tent. You're in the Ironman tent. Here you are. It's time to change. Oh boy, it can be uncomfortable, but you got to focus. You have to keep focusing. Is it going to be a preference of being in the view of the rear or full frontal? I mean, everybody's changing. What do you got?
Oh, yeah.
Would you prefer the rear view or frontal? The rear, please.
Wait a second. The question is, what am I seeing? Or
what are you seeing? No, forget what you're showing, because you know what? You've got no control at this point.
Exactly.
But you can control, hopping around and getting, only a view of the tent wall, or like a rear view or frontal.
A rear view.
A rear view. Thank you. Okay, number four. This is a good one, because you already confirmed with me that I wanted to say, how do you take your eggs? But see, you've already confirmed with me that we don't have that.
Yes.
So what I would go for, are you having eggs or no, you're not having
no eggs. But
Right.
if I'm baking, and you can ask anybody on Long Island that I'm somewhere, I am bringing vegan brownies or something like that. I'll make flaxseed eggs. So you just take flaxseed and you grind it up, and that's what binds it instead of an egg. So you take 1 tablespoon of ground up flaxseed, 3 tablespoons of warm water, let it sit and it develops, mix it in.
That's what you're using for your eggs?
Instead of eggs. I don't need eggs.
I know, I love that I asked this. I'm so happy I asked this question. So, look at that, guys. We get some information here.
Yeah.
You're using flaxseed with the water.
Flaxseed with water to bake and make vegan baked dishes. And then I'll put applesauce in it to make it really moist.
Oh my gosh, I'm glad I asked that question.
I'm going to send you the recipe, Caroline.
I am loving that we asked this question now. Okay. And then the final question is since you worked for Sony, what is that finish line song that you're going to look forward to?
That's a good one.
Right? There's so many out there.
I would say that is really, All Fired Up.
All Fired Up. All right. Pat Benatar. No, I know Pat Benatar.
Pat Benatar.
Who doesn't know Pat Benatar? No. Pat, All Fired Up. All right. Well, I love it. And I'm looking forward to, listen, you had this past weekend, you sent me the photo, which we're going to all see. How did it go? How was that?
It was amazing. It was the first multi-sport race back on Long Island, and just being with people that I haven't seen in in this, playground that we joined. The smiles on everybody's faces.
What was the race called?
It was a duathlon. It was the Brands, which is a bike shop on Long Island that sponsors it, at Cedar Creek Park duathlon.
Awesome.
So it was super fun to be out there. It was super fun to be out
It's so good to be back in that
hard year.
No matter what, right? It's so good to just be out there.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for your time today, Staci.
What a pleasure. You're awesome. Thank you for doing what you do for us.
Absolutely. This has been a wonderful, wonderful talk today. And guys, I'll put all of Staci's information here in the notes for you so that you can find her on Instagram. She's all over social media in a positive way, which is very important in our world. So I will make sure to put all of her information here in the bottom. Look down in the notes so you can just click it. And thank you so much. Have a good rest of your week this week, Staci.
Yes, thank you. You too. Enjoy.
That's a wrap for this week on the Why We Try. I hope you enjoyed this episode and this deep dive into the world of triathlon as much as I did. If you're looking for more insights, tips, and training encouragement, follow me over on Instagram. I'm at Why We Try Podcast, and that's try with an I. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your teammates, post about it on social media, or leave a rating and review. Thanks again, and don't forget your favorite beverage wherever you go.